And could you share the company's business journey in the Indonesian market from the early days until right now?
So the very early days are a trading partnership that was formed in Hong Kong in 1895. So we're talking more than 130 years. So it's a very old company. Today, it's a global family enterprise. We're still 100% family owned. But the emphasis is mainly in East Asia. And so we're in China, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia. We came to the Indonesian market in 1972. So it's been quite a while as well. Today, what we do in Indonesia, we have about 600 people working in Indonesia. It's purely industry focused. So we have a material handling business that produces cranes and logistics systems and building access equipment. We have a distribution business in ingredients. So chemical ingredients and nutritional ingredients. We have an engineering business that builds oleochemical downstream processing plants. We provide pumps and irrigation systems and turf management systems. So it's quite a wide variety of activities that we have here.
Okay, so with that experience, how does Jebsen and Jessen view with the evolution of Indonesia industrial technology needs in recent years? Have there been significant shift in demand and also the business focus?
So I think what you've seen in Indonesia in the last, let's say, in the last decade, I think has been a very strong emphasis on building infrastructure. For basically for the industrialization of the domestic economy. And I think that's been very good for the country. We've also seen development of natural resources, and many of them are export oriented. And I think there the emphasis has been a lot on local value adding before it leaves the country, and that also has been something very good for the country. Manufacturing has also grown, but it's quite focused on domestic consumption. So in the food area or in automotive, etc. Less so in terms of being integrated to the global supply chain and in higher value manufacturing. And our product portfolio has always adapted. So we have cranes that go to the infrastructure business. We have the palm oil downstream processing plants that go into the edible oil industry. We have packaging that goes into the food manufacturing industry. So that's how we're set up. I think the Indonesian market has evolved to some degree to something that's simpler. I think the Indonesian market was for many years complex, difficult for foreign companies to adapt to. And as a result, even though I mentioned we were here since 1972, but within ASEAN, it's always been a relatively small country for us. And that is because there were many industries which were quite difficult as a foreign company to enter. So that has changed. And meanwhile, Indonesia has become one of our main countries because I think some of the sectors that previously were closed for foreigners have now been opened. So it's been a good journey.
Okay, so and your industry not only in Indonesia but also in China, Hong Kong, right?
Correct. As a family enterprise, it's a global business.
And
in the company that we're talking about today, which is one of the members of the family enterprise, it's mainly focused in ASEAN.
Okay. And how do you see Indonesia for recent days in the position if we comparing with the other Asia?
Well, it's the biggest economy. So it's always important to have a strong foothold in Indonesia. I think it's found its niche. I mean, what grows in Indonesia and what's big in Indonesia is, as I mentioned, the natural resources and the domestic market. So we have quite a few activities in Vietnam, for example, and we invest in Vietnam mainly to piggyback on the industry that's export-oriented. So a lot of the business is there to produce products that are exported. Here in Indonesia, a lot of the products are for the local market.
All right. And my next question would be a very hot issue. In the context of sustainability, when did Jebsen and Jessen start integrating green principle into its business operation, and can you provide us with some examples?
Yeah, sure. So we started our sustainability journey in the mid-90s. And that's a very early time to start, actually, because there were very few other companies doing it at the time. And what we focused on at the time was to say, in all that, and we were industrializing. We were sort of moving from a trading company into manufacturing, engineering, etc. We said, what are the risks and the impacts, the environmental risks, the environmental impacts, and the risks and impacts in terms of health and safety of everything we do? And so it was quite in a way, a defensive approach. And you asked for examples. I'll give you one very concrete example. We're distributors, I mentioned earlier, of industrial chemicals. Hundreds of different chemicals. Many of these inherently are quite dangerous. And we were, with many of our peers in the industry, living in a blissful ignorance of all the things that can go horribly wrong in a chemical warehouse, for example. If you have flammable liquids next to oxidizers, it can give you a lot of trouble. The food ingredients next to poisons, etc. And we took a very early approach to address that and to put in place proper emergency response systems. What do you do when there's a fire and you put fire water that's contaminated? How do you contain that? How do you store your products? How do you transport your products? All of these things are today absolutely a normal thing to do, but back then we were the pioneers to do that. And what was interesting is it allowed us then to move from a very defensive approach into an offensive approach, because it became like a USP for us, like a selling point. We were representing the big multinational chemical companies, and they were starting to sign up to international norms like responsible care, for example, where they have to worry about what happens to my product after it leaves my factory gate. Who are my distributors? How are they managing the products? How are the users managing it? And by us being early pioneers in addressing those concerns, we became very attractive as a distributor for them. So it turned into a business opportunity. But I have to say there were also business opportunities that were lost because of this.
One of Jebsen and Jessen's key business activities is plastic packaging, right? How does the company reconcile its decision to be an active player in this industry with the growing plastic waste problem in Indonesia?
So it's an excellent question, and we get asked that question a lot. Okay. And we, in fact, asked the question to ourselves back in the 1990s when we started. Because even in the 1990s, plastic had a negative connotation around it. And we were saying, okay, we're in this industry. Do we want to stay in this industry? And the approach that we took is you've got to look at it on a factual basis. And the way you look at when you have different materials and you need to choose a particular material for an application, say glass and aluminium and plastic, etc., you need to look at something called a life cycle analysis. So you look at multiple sustainability criteria objectively across the whole life cycle. So when you're producing the product, when you're using it, when you're disposing it, when you're recycling it. And it turned out counterintuitively that plastic very often is actually environmentally superior, not in all cases, but in many cases, than the other material.